Let's talk about boundaries, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things. There are no bad things that boundaries can be. Let's talk about boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries. So, I'm going to get into a three-part series on boundaries. And I want to talk to you about the clinical psychological terms for some boundaries. I'm going to talk to you about some trauma boundaries and the things that we set boundaries, and then I'm going to talk about I'm going to give you five boundaries that you can start setting today. Okay, so there's a three-part. You'll get this over the next 2 days. So let's start with the first one. So the first one these are the boundaries that are considered psychological terms for boundaries. You may hear different interchangeable terms. The first one is a porous boundary. A porous boundary, this is a boundary where a person is porous, like they flow through, right? This is a boundary where a person is either they have low self-esteem, they don't know how to set boundaries, they were never taught how to set boundaries. They don't believe that they have the right and the authority and the autonomy, the agency to actually set boundaries. So this kind of person is, they struggle with saying no. They will change a boundary at the slightest setback or the slightest pushback. So if someone questions a boundary that they set, they are going to change that boundary, right? That is a porous boundary. The second type of boundary is a rigid boundary. Now, if you think about a pendulum, you have a porous boundary over here, which means that this boundary, it is loose. It'll change. I'll change it depending on how I feel about myself, how I feel about the person. If I feel like these people will push back against this boundary, I am not strong enough to set this boundary and hold up to it. Then we have the rigid boundary. Now, rigid boundaries actually sometimes come from trauma, but it also becomes from a place of this is everyone gets the boundary. Everyone gets the same boundary, right? This kind of boundary, it does protect us, but it also keeps us behind a wall. It's a boundary that isn't always healthy. It provides stability, but it keeps everybody at a distance, right? So a rigid boundary means that I don't ever consider a circumstance where this boundary is not the boundary. Now, there are some rigid boundaries that you should have in your life, but majority of our boundaries should be what we consider healthy boundaries. A healthy boundary is flexible. It's based on the circumstance, the situation, or the person that you are interacting with. So this means that there's some times where I will set a boundary, but depending on the situation, I am healthy enough and self-aware enough to know when that boundary can be flexible enough to allow this person access to me. So this is a person who can say no, a person who also adjusts when things need to be adjusted. So I'm not afraid to set a boundary, but I'm also confident enough to be flexible enough to change my boundary when it's no longer serving me. I hope this helps. Follow for more and meet me in the comments.